Hey, good to see you. I had a regularly scheduled episode all ready for you this week, and then I saw a really awesome video that I just had to bring to you and then talk about. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's go. Welcome to the I Am Podcast, where we answer all the questions about spirituality and inner peace that you ever wanted to ask, and where we learn the secrets of humanity and divinity through a better understanding of both. I am your host, Sean Webb. Okay, so I wanted to bring you this video, and it's from Fora.tv, and they put out regular little videos every week on various topics from speakers around the country. And it's a really interesting podcast that you probably should check out, and websites, Fora.tv. And about a week ago or so, they put out a short little video from a talk that included neurobiologist David Eagleman speaking about the brain. And so I wanted to show this to you, share it with you, and then we'll talk about it a little bit when it is done. Here we go.
So as far as we can tell, we are the only species that has grown so sophisticated that we've thrown ourselves headlong into this game of trying to figure out our own programming language. So it would be as though your computer started controlling its own peripheral devices and pulled off its cover and pointed its webcam at its own circuitry to try to figure out what it was made out of. That's exactly what we've done. And what we've discovered under the hood there is the most complicated device we've ever found in the universe. First slide, please. What we found is the human brain, which is about 3 pounds. And as Rama alluded to, it's the most complicated device we've ever found in the universe. So it contains tens of billions of neurons. These are the specialized cell types of the brain. And the thing to appreciate is that each neuron is as complicated as the city of San Diego. Every single neuron has the entire human genome in it. It's trafficking millions of proteins. And these are connected in such density to one another that we have hundreds of trillions of connections between them. And this means that if you were to take just a cubic centimeter of brain tissue, you have as many connections in there as you have stars in the Milky Way galaxy. So it's a tremendously complicated system that we're talking about, and it's one that actually bankrupts human language. We have to invent new strains of mathematics to even talk about it. But it's not just the complexity that's the amazing part. It's that one of the most significant intellectual developments of our species has been the recognition that somehow fundamentally we are irrevocably tied to this 3 pounds of completely alien tissue. This is where we have our joys and our loves and our fears, the agony, the ecstasy. And how do we actually know that? How do we know that's in this tissue and not in your pinky, for example? And the answer is, if you were to damage your pinky in a car accident, you would be sad about that, but you wouldn't be any different as a person. But if you were to damage an equivalently sized chunk of brain tissue, that can change you entirely. That can change your decision-making or your risk aversion or your capacity to see colors or name animals or understand music. And this is how we know that this 3 pounds of wet biological electrochemical tissue is somehow very closely tied to what we are. And the most amazing thing to me, being a neurobiologist, about this whole thing is that essentially all of the massive operations of this incredibly vast machinery runs underneath the hood of conscious awareness. So it essentially runs invisibly, just like Thomas was talking about with transparency. So when I lift a cup of coffee to my mouth, that's underpinned by a lightning storm of neural activity, and yet it's completely invisible to me. And if it weren't for neurobiology, we wouldn't even have any reason to suspect the existence of muscles and tendons and nerves and electrical signals, right? Because we don't have access to any of that. It just seems totally effortless to us. And of course, it's not just lifting a cup of coffee. It's everything we do in life. It's recognizing a friend's face, or getting a joke, or driving a car, or falling in love. Any of these things happen completely underneath the hood of conscious awareness. And this is what leads to the idea of the unconscious mind. And it turns out that the conscious part of you which is the part that flickers to life when you wake up in the morning, that is the smallest bit of what's happening in the brain. It's like the broom closet in the mansion of the brain. So think about what it's like when you have an idea. You say, oh, I just thought of something. Well, it wasn't actually you that thought of it, right? Your brain's been working on that behind the scenes for hours or days, consolidating information, simulating different possibilities, evaluating them. At some point, it gets served up to your consciousness, and you say, oh, I'm a genius. But it wasn't really you, right? So, as Carl Jung said, in each of us, there is another who we do not know. As Pink Floyd put it, there's someone in my head, but it's not me.
I love that little bit. The last couple of quotes there. In fact, I really love Carl Jung's quotes, and almost any quote from Carl Jung, because Carl Jung was one of those masterminds who was enlightened and let his knowledge of mystical and extra-conscious experience guide his research. And a lot of his quotes are right out of the Enlightenment experience. It's really cool. If you notice there in the panel, I plugged a book a couple of weeks ago. Well, that's Dr. Richard Davidson on the right side of the stage there. And I would have loved to hear what he said. You can probably get the full video at fora.tv because they only put out an excerpt of this entire video, usually in the podcast. And then when you go to their website, you can watch the whole video. But it'd be interesting to find out what he was saying there at the conference. Out of this video, I just wanted to point out a couple of things that Dr. Eagleman talked about. One of which being the hundreds of trillions of connections that exist up here. There are more connections up here than are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. That is just flabbergasting. When you start thinking about one of his other statements, the conscious part of you, the flicker of awakening that we have in the morning, is the smallest bit of everything that's going on inside your brain, inside your head. Your mind is only a small percentage of the brain and its activity. And the interesting, cute, cool little fact, the 1 cubic centimeter is more complex than San Diego. I thought that was really poignant. That was really cool. But the thing that I wanted you to think about after watching this video that just kind of blows your mind by itself is that enlightenment, the experience of enlightenment, or any mystical experience, any spiritual beyond consciousness experience, comes from or is experienced through that same 3 pounds of gray matter. And so what's all that about? You know, when we're talking about shutting down the mind and ceasing conscious thought as a way to attain an extra consciousness experience, what portion of the intelligence of that brain is helping to create that experience and that understanding and all the wisdom and all the knowledge that comes from that mystical experience? Because I think we've talked about enlightenment enough for you to understand now that even if you haven't experienced it, it is an experience that can shut down your senses and overwhelm you with a wisdom and knowledge of existence that is beyond what humans typically can understand, and of course beyond something that we can all comprehend. Even if we have the experience, we only bring a portion of that knowledge and experience back that we experience. And so what is it in that gray matter area that is either coming through that gray matter area or that we're tapping into within that gray matter area that is allowing us to transcend our normal understanding of existence and our normal experience into a greater level of consciousness, a greater level of spirituality? And is that experience connected with the intelligence and the consciousness of the cells in the brain themselves? Because the thing that Dr. Eagleman had to dance around, he will, and every neurobiologist that you talk to will admit that the cells are living, breathing, procreating, intelligent creatures. I mean, they're passing information back and forth without our conscious will to tell them to do so. And so, in fact, there's a huge amount of intelligence. Our bodies are much more intelligent than the cells. One little single cell in our body is much more intelligent than our intelligence, or what we perceive as our intelligence, en masse, by orders of magnitude, by exponential increase. And so the amount of intelligence that exists in one cell to be able to replicate a whole human body, we're not even close to that with our own intelligence. We're simply surfing the experience of their intelligence, their interaction through the movie motion picture of our mind, quote unquote, which is kind of a two-way street interaction. We can have interaction to tell our bodies to do things, and our bodies communicate things back to us. But ultimately, if we step into the ring with Lennox Lewis, they have ultimate control. Because if we get popped in the head just once by Lennox Lewis, somewhere in our gray matter, our mind says, oh, you put us in a bad situation, and we're going to remove your driving privileges for a few minutes while we start to initiate repairs, and hopefully the danger that you put us in will go away. So ultimately, the cells themselves are in control of our body. But what inside those cells, what inside that consciousness that the neurobiologists have to dance around allows us to have that mystical enlightenment experience? Because the cells themselves are conscious. I mean, when you burn your hand on the stove, the message gets to your backbone before somebody back there says, makes a very logical decision, by the way, to say, cells are being damaged in the hand, let's go ahead and jerk the muscles, the also intelligent, living, breathing cells in the muscles, to remove the hand from the heat so that no further cellular destruction occurs, right? Your brain doesn't even get to weigh in on that. Your mind, your consciousness, you don't decide to pull your hand back from a burning object. It is, quote unquote, involuntary, right? That's a consciousness. That's an intelligent decision-making ability. And so David Eagleman has to stop short in saying that the cells themselves are conscious, but he's hinting right at it. You can hear it in the video. If you go listen to it again, he's hinting that what's next? What is our next step in this cellular understanding to be able to figure out what's going on up here and where the line of demarcation is between our brain and our mind? He's headed there. You can tell it. You can see it. You can smell it. It's awesome. And so the question that I want to pose to you is, what within you is that separate consciousness? And for your homework this week, what I'd like you to do, beyond sitting in meditation and trying to clear your own mind, to quiet your own conscious thoughts from interrupting and creating judgments and emotions and clearing all the garbage out, beyond that, focus on the consciousness within you that you normally can't even touch, that you normally go cruising on through your day without even acknowledging. Sit and think about that intelligence, about that consciousness. Because what David Eagleman's talking about is there's a separation between consciousness. There's the consciousness of what's going on in your brain behind the scenes, and then there's the consciousness that when something becomes important enough that is brought to your conscious attention that shows up in your mind, that is a result of what's going on in the brain. Well, what's going on in the brain isn't just, a chaotic mess of random thoughts that pop up. It is a conscious stream of intelligent, relevant information that gets passed up. Well, that denotes some level of consciousness. So this week, what I want you to do is sit down and meditate on that separate intelligence and that separate consciousness that exists in your mind. And if you'd like to pick up one of David Eagleman's books or Richard Davidson's book, like I plugged a couple of weeks ago, go to audible.com And actually, if you go through our link, audibletrial.com/IamSpirituality, you get it for free. You get a free book. You sign up for the 30-day free trial, risk-free. You can cancel before your 30 days is up. You pay absolutely nothing. You get the free book. I've been a member for 4 years, though. They're awesome. I mean, just let it go for a few months. You can cancel it anytime you like. You'll get audiobooks all over the place. You'll be able to listen to them at the gym, in the car, as you're doing your housework, as you're mowing the lawn. It's awesome. You got to check it out. Audible.com, and you go to audibletrial.com/IamSpirituality. And until next week, where I hope to be back on some kind of schedule, which I didn't even publish, so as far as you know, this could be on schedule. I hope you have a great week. Talk to you soon.